from the right-hand end of the airfield. And here it goes, the incredible Lockheed U-2S. On Soviet capabilities, and yet it still remains so relevant to conflicts and other crisis areas today. And that's why they continue to be based around the world, including here at Fairford. And someone who knows all about this is a former U-2 pilot, call sign Popeye, Scott Thompson. Welcome back to RIAT. Oh, Ben, great to be here. Now, I believe, apart from anything else, as we go through this display, we'll actually be able to hear some of the chase car transmissions later on when those parts of the demo take place. But what are we going to be seeing first off?
First off, we're going to be seeing the airplane doing something that you don't typically see from the ground, which is the U-2 pulling its gear up. Now, this airplane is going to be doing what is, for it, a high-speed pass. You're not going to see any shock waves or anything, but maximum 240 knots indicated airspeed is what that airplane will be achieving, which for what is essentially a glider with a jet engine stuck up in the middle of it, is quite fast.
Now, I mentioned that this aircraft is in a configuration we've never seen before in a flying display, as far as we know. Just explain a little bit more about that, if you would.
That's right. The configuration of the airplane that you're seeing in front of you today is what it would typically be configured for an operational mission. And what that means is there's some sensitive equipment on board, housed appropriately, that would be used wherever the operational commanders request it to be. So the signals intelligence suite is in these superpods that are on the wings, and that listens, as you might, the eyes and ears, as you might be able to determine, and the eyes are on the nose of the airplane. So the different sensors that we put on the nose are electro-optical infrared sensors or synthetic aperture radar, both being able to achieve something that you cannot achieve from low-altitude sensors.
All that information that's being passively collected or actively collected is then transmitted through the satellite dish that is on the back of the airplane. It goes into the satellite architecture down to a ground station where the information is processed. And that's codenamed the senior fan pod, isn't it?
That's correct, the senior fan.
And what about the nose? Because again, that can take different sensor fits, can't it?
That's right. Usually it's typically the optical sensor that's on the nose of the airplane, and it will take different appearances with those different sensors. So as I mentioned, the synthetic aperture radar is the sensor that's on board at this moment, which is the longest nose that the U-2 has. And when it has that long nose, it makes it even more difficult to land the airplane, because as you get into the landing attitude with the higher AOA, the long nose obscures the runway, which when you're wearing a pressure suit, that's a 9.5-hour mission, with the fatigue that you would experience without being able to stand up, use the facilities, so that's the case. You need the help of your wingman, and that's the mobile officer in the car. And we'll come on to that in a little while, but for the moment it's going to go quite quiet. It's going to go quite quiet because what it's setting up to do now is what's called a stimulated flame out. Well, for training purposes, it's going to be setting up for what we call high key, setting out some drag to simulate if the engine has failed. So the glide ratio that you'll be experiencing watching now is the same as it would if the engine was actually failed. So it truly is a glider. So if we watch the aircraft coming past, I think it's worth reflecting, given our eyes in the sky see, how the U-2's capability has evolved, even in relatively recent times, because wet film used to be the order of the day. Was it 2022 or so that was retired? That's right, the optical bar camera is what that was called, and it had actual film, several miles of film on a large reel, produced by Kodak. Yes.
Andy Sheringham, if you're in the enclosure, please go to the entrance. Thank you.
And it's basically the sensor that the airplane was built with. And it was just recently retired, that particular sensor, but it's been replaced with far more high-fidelity sensors as far as imagery and both signals intelligence as well. And we're talking real-time transmission also to commanders on the ground. That's absolutely right. Something the optical bar camera, the wet film, wasn't capable of doing was taking the picture, processing it immediately, and getting it to commanders. But the imagery sensors that we have today are absolutely able to do that. And coupled with artificial intelligence, the processing timeline has come down to real time. Now, we're getting into the approach phase now, and let's just consider that the U-2 can fly missions as long as 10 hours in duration, typically, so the pilots might well be a little fatigued when they're returning, so this all enhances the importance of having the chase car support. That's correct. The chase car is it's an interceptor package of a Dodge Charger, which is what is typically used as a police car in the United States. Yes. And so it has a lot of get up and go, so to say. And it has the ability to be doing probably 120 miles an hour to catch the airplane. Once it gets up near the aircraft, it'll slow down to around 80 miles per hour. And the pilot that's in the car is also a U-2 pilot and knows exactly what's needed to safely land the airplane. He'll give input, whether it's left or right rudder, hold it off, and things to that effect. So, watch out at the right-hand end of the runway as the U-2 turns onto very short finals, and let's try and listen out, if we can, for the chase car. The chase car not underway yet, it's just getting underway now, and we'll soon hear the occupants talking the U-2 down and calling out the heights.
Yeah, we need you now. He's not going to pick up these down property. Right now,
We talked a little bit about the what colloquially referred to as the spacesuit, the pressure suit. The pilot's not needed to wear one today, as he would on a typical operational mission. That's right, the uniform that the pilot's wearing today is just a typical flight suit, which we'd use for any of the low missions, as we call them. But the pilot's going to fly on a high mission, specifically going over what's called Armstrong's line. Then he'll be wearing a full pressure suit, and interestingly, that full pressure suit is the same suit that was borrowed by the space shuttle astronauts on their first mission. The suit itself is produced by the David Clark Company, same people who make those green headsets that we all know and love. And it keeps the pilot alive in the event of a depressurization, particularly about 63,000 feet, which is where the Armstrong's line is, where if you were to depressurize, it would be a bad story. It is incredible that an aeroplane that conducted its first operational missions in 1956, and back then it wasn't a US Air Force program, it was run by the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency, is still relevant today, thanks to all the upgrades. It is, in reality though, Popeye, a very different aircraft, isn't it? That's why we call it the same name as the U-2, but these airplanes that we're seeing today, which are 40% larger than the planes that were originally flown in the 1950s, being that they're so much larger engine, and carry much more equipment. That airplane that you see now can carry 4,000 pounds of sensor equipment to 70,000 feet for up to 12 hours, and get the imagery and the signals intelligence sensors on station, and be able to dynamically retask those sensors, which is unique with the pilot on board, to be able to change the mission as required as things change during flight. Nonetheless, it's great that the 99th Expeditionary Reconnaissance Squadron continues such a long tradition of U-2 operations from the UK, which began in 1956 when the CIA made a detachment to RAF Lakenheath in Suffolk. They didn't actually undertake any operations at that stage. It was under the cover of, quote, weather research. Later, U-2Rs were deployed to RAF Milton in Suffolk. They were based in TR-1A, former designation emphasising the tactical reconnaissance role of the type at RAF Altenbury for many years, but now very much at home here in Gloucestershire. And now, once again, the chase car will be waiting at the end of the runway, ready to make those crucial calls to the pilot as the U-2 comes in for its full stop landing. One more thing to keep an eye out for, Ben, is the landing configuration of this airplane. So it has a bicycle landing gear, tandem, meaning a wheel in front, a wheel in back, nothing on the wings. So as it touches down, one wing will eventually park back to runway. It's a sacrificial acting skid plate just for that purpose.
Hold it up. Hold it up. 2, 1, hold it up. Hold it up. Hold it up. 1, 2, hold it.
Well there, a live U-2 landing taking you into the cabin of the Dodge Charger chase car, and what a spectacle that is. And Pop, I would very much hope it's one that we'll be able to see again in the future. With 70% of the aircraft's lifespan remaining, we sure hope so too. Let's just have a word as the aircraft rolls past. I love how weathered and operational this aircraft looks. About the most like reconnaissance squadron tail markings on the aeroplane. So that's our Friday tail flag. That's a red dragon with a top hat and a monocle having a nice cup of tea. I love it. What a fantastic airplane. Please pass on our thanks to all the crew from the 99th ERS who've made this happen. The Lockheed U-2S.
Yeah.
Just a magnificent sight. Oh, I thank you so much for coming. Of course, people can look at the U-2 close up in the static part as well here. That's right, just behind us here is the slick display U-2. Absolutely go up, get close, up close and personal, and have a good look at the airplane. And they can see your fair child, 24 August. That's right, the August is just nearby. Have another look at that airplane as well. It's sure appreciated. Enjoy it.